Wherever you are, and thank you if you are watching this stream off in the future on YouTube or anywhere else. I'm Dennis Earl, and I'm the current department chair of Philosophy and Religious Studies here at Coastal Carolina. And today we're going to have a sort of informal interview chat with our new faculty member this year, who is Emily Humbert, who's coming to us most recently anyway from Southern Illinois, Carbondale. Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with any of those other Southern Illinois kind of programs that are also very good out there. And Emily is going to be our Jackson Center Fellow, which is our ethics center here on Coastal's campus. And we're very glad to have that position not only back for us, but to have Emily in that slot as well. All right, we're very happy to have her. How's it going, Emily?
It's going good, Dennis. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm so excited to start my fellowship at Coastal. Roughly in about, I want to say 3 weeks, right? The semester starts soon, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, great. We're looking forward to it too. We'll see some people we're hoping face to face in something more or less normal.
Yes.
whatever that's going to be. And if it's not, we'll take that however it comes. Yeah. So we kind of have some stock questions, but we can talk about whatever you like. So what sort of, this is kind of like a, what brought you to philosophy and what brought you to the academic side of philosophy kind of questions. So can you tell us a little bit about that? What drew you to our subject, and then to like go the whole way to seek a position like we've got?
Yeah, insanity probably to go to graduate school and not guaranteed. So actually, I went to undergraduate in Connecticut at the Catholic school, Sacred Heart University, and I originally went for education. I had my master's in teaching, and I was going to do social studies because I got my undergraduate in history. And I did student teaching, and I did a certification with 7th graders, and I loved it. I have some of the best memories from 7th graders. But there was something really missing in social studies and in history. I mean, I love learning history, but something as great as philosophy is for me like a vocation. And I didn't find that with history, but I loved teaching. So I actually took my first philosophy class, my intro, junior year, because I didn't think that I needed it. I was like, oh, like this is just like stupid stuff that you take. So I got into philosophy much later than I think hopefully a lot of my students are doing now with freshmen and sophomores. I got into junior year, and I just took a lot, and I had a few courses left over that would fulfill complete another undergraduate degree. So after getting the certification in teaching, I said, I don't know if I want to do this. I think I want to go back and finish an undergraduate in philosophy. So I did. Then I went to Thailand for a month to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And then I came back and decided to continue with philosophy. And go to grad school. So it was just something that fell into my lap much later in my undergraduate program. And it's something that I love. It's not just a career for me. It is a way of being, a way of life. And I just happen to get paid to do what I love, which is the dream for everyone, is to find something to do and to also get paid to do it. So I really, really enjoy it. And I hope that I share that with my students, that you never stop learning. You never stop doing philosophy. You're always doing philosophy. We just have fancy words for it in academia.
Cool. So you touched on something right there that's been on my mind a lot recently, and that's to think of philosophy as a way of life. So there are all of these, and this seems to be coming back to the fore, either after a long hiatus or after, where by this, for anybody listening, since like the Stoics, so like 2,000-year hiatus, where it seems like there's this reemergence or something of interest in that conception of philosophy, both for just doing the field and then for how kind of to orient your classes and to introduce people to what's so great about it and what's worth learning and all the rest. So like, do you have any feelings or or hard views worked out on like which of those conceptions of philosophy seems to be best or right, or how they fit together, or anything like that. It's kind of a vague question. Sorry.
No, I see what you're getting at, and I guess for me, I've always been kind of I have mixed feelings of it. I have definitely mixed feelings of love hate with philosophy. I think I can see it working in communities in the classroom where it should be, and not kind of in the ivory tower. But we also worked hard to get our degrees, and especially for being a woman, even though being privileged in other ways, it's very unusual to get to that kind of level. Of a discipline, right? The PhD is a doctorate in philosophy, so you're getting like a double philosophy degree with your doctorate. But I think that for me, as being a teacher at heart, I'm probably going to be on the side of philosophy as a way of life, and just find ways to do it, but also have it recognized within these academic circles, what we've kind of deemed as being worthy arenas and venues for this kind of work. But for me, it's always with the students in mind, and also me with my own well-being in mind. So sharing that in the classroom, I don't aspire to be an amazing, well-renowned, philosopher. I just want to, teach my students and hopefully have them be better human beings and to treat others better. And I think that's a win on my part if I can do that.
Yeah, right, right.
But we do get a lot of pressure, especially as I think graduate students, to publish and to go to conferences and make connections and to do all these kind of hurdles and these checklists, and we've kind of forgotten why a lot of us fell in love with philosophy. So I have to remind myself where my heart lies, and it's in teaching, and it's in making it applicable and finding inspiration in the everyday, because that is what we do with ethics, especially ethical life is everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely like this move, and it's not like it totally went away for 2,000 years. There's always some inspiration and interest and so on, and the post-Aristotelian Stoics and all of them. But like, I never got any of that coming up. I mean, I think you and I were probably raised slightly differently as far as the grad background goes. Like, I was raised pretty hardcore, analytic, logic oriented, conceptual analysis, philosophy of mind, science, and metaphysics kind of upbringing, where like, man, that's what philosophy is, and I don't know what that other stuff is all that, right? And then you'd be really snooty about it too. You're like, well, none of that really counts either, and it's like, they're really wrong. I can say that publicly, but it makes it an interesting kind of development, like in my own kind of experience, to sort of come to understand this much bigger tent kind of.
And do you feel like you are starting to kind of appreciate fields that, I don't want to say like kind of indoctrinated as graduate students, or at least our training, that you feel like, oh, I'm what I've missed out on, for my training from an early time? Do you feel like you are starting to experience different fields of philosophy that otherwise had been kind of dismissed or delegitimized in some sense?
Yeah, I don't know whether I ever really dismissed them altogether. It's like, that's kind of, I don't know. I don't think so. But I always was, I'll put it this way, I always felt really guilty, and I still do, about all of these gaps. You want to know it all. Or at least like be able to have a thoroughly intelligent, informed conversation about anything in philosophy, which of course is impossible.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop me from feeling very guilty about it. And so there
Yeah.
are all these other things where, like, you probably shouldn't think so critically about that if you haven't actually kind of done a deep dive into it a little bit, right? So yeah, I mean, it's just need some time to get into it, and I think I've tried to make some time to do it. Yeah, before I started the department chair job, I didn't read like a bunch of leadership stuff. I went and read Seneca.
Mhm.
instead, which is great. It's totally great. It's like, he's grand administrator of the empire, number two, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that was good. Yeah, and
I
other
mean,
things too. Yeah,
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, as long as when you talked about we feel like we have to know everything, especially as competency of, like, the history of philosophy, it's like, you get very specialized, and of course, just in order to survive in academia, you have to kind of specialize and focus, and you can only reach out so much. But you're right, I do sympathize with that position of like, oh man, I should know more about this because this is how it's connected to the work that I'm doing. And eventually you just have to say my brain can literally only contain so much information because I'm forgetting like where my keys are, or that I had a dentist appointment tomorrow. Like my brain is getting smaller and smaller for its storage.
yeah. Even if I learned it, I'd forget it. I'd forget it,
Yeah.
in a month anyway, unless somebody asked me about it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, somebody. It was a professor I had at USC in Columbia, South Carolina, Columbia, uh,
Mhm.
and he said once that there was a time, maybe up into the 1980s or something like that, where you actually could keep up with all the new stuff coming out. If you kind of were dedicated, you could read the journals and things like that, and actually keep up with all of the contemporary stuff. But it's just it became impossible, and everything
Mhm.
got specialized and all that. There's good and bad of that, but it does make it hard to kind of feel informed about lots of stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
But that's good. It's like there's no field anywhere. It's not like the scientists, like they know everything about their field either. That's like kind of
Exactly.
years to find out new stuff.
Mhm.
Speaking of new stuff, like what any scholarly things you're working on this summer?
So, I am, well, besides kind of doing the prep work for my intro to ethics courses, I'm trying to expand a little bit more on my research with prison abolition, because that heavily informed the dissertation with the canine training programs in prison. So I'm reading a lot of Lisa Gunther, about looking at kind of the phenomenological accounts, which is not to say that I'll go in that direction, but I'm trying to work in some questions about perhaps like a more naturalistic approach to ethics in prison abolition. So that's some of what I've been doing, and also in preparation for a talk that I'll be giving, I think in the end of September, about the subversiveness of the canine training programs in prisons, as doing some really revolutionary work undercover.
Okay, tell us a little bit about how those things fit together. I read about it in your application materials.
Mhm.
Yeah, like how do those things fit together? So ideas about prison abolition, and then the canine programs are what?
So what I was trying to do was I was trying to find a way to write about dogs for my dissertation, and non-human animal relationships. And I have this strange like fascination with these programs that involve dog training, either in prison or after prison. Like pit bulls and parolees are kind of the go-to for after incarceration, but I'm really interested in what's happening in and behind prison walls. So I was trying to find a way to grapple with something, a relationship in programs that I think were important and something beautiful was happening in them, but that they were surrounded by a lot of layers of what I would call problematics. You have, race and animality, you have the ethical use of animals, but also inmate labor through training. So I wanted to mess around with the messiness of these programs, but still come out with an argument that despite all of the potential wrongs and pernicious kind of directions that this could go in, I think that something really important is happening between these participants, both human and non-human. So I'm really interested in the idea of doing educational programs through either the traditional kind of the high school diploma, preparatory work, or philosophy courses, or dog training programs, as ways to dismantle and undermine mass incarceration, and develop relationships that otherwise are not cultivated behind these walls. So, and that's all to say, I tried to find ways to bring these all together, and I was really fortunate to be able to bring them. And I think, at least in an initially really interesting way.
Okay. So now when you say people will be interested in this when they hear prison abolition or undermining mass incarceration, as to how far that, as to what exactly that thesis is and how far it kind of goes. So like what's the idea and what's the general, just a sort of easy argument for what you'd like to see.
Mm-hmm.
What's out there to be worked over as an argument, right?
Right. I think so. What my argument for these programs was that they're not a savior. Like, they're not the all encompassing solution for all the problems that occur, at least with between race and class, for mass incarceration. But I think that they are a good in between. And I think Angela Davis talks about this in The Meaning of Freedom, where she looks at, this misconception about prison abolition is that, oh, we're just going to end prison and we're just going to open the doors and then that's it. That, and I'll be honest, is before I became much more informed on prison abolition, that's kind of the idea that I had. And a lot of my students had the same idea. So I sympathize with that. Like, I don't actually know what that means. And what I found is that we have to do a lot of work in multiple places to make this actually happen and come into fruition. So you have to have educational programs, but you also have to have economic change, and you have to have social change, and you have to have different ways of providing for the community that's community-based rather than police-based. So a lot of like working parts have to happen for prison abolition to actually, succeed. And it's always an experimental aspect. Some things might not work that we thought that were going to work out, or different communities need different things. And this was just one part through the training programs that I felt like they can add to this overall goal towards prison abolition, with the openness that things are going to pop up that we don't expect and that we don't have solutions for. So you have to be very flexible with that, but always with the intention in mind of serving the community and communities, and finding better ways to relate to each other.
Okay. So let's switch over to the fall here at Coastal again. So what are you most excited about, and why?
I'm so excited to get back into the classroom. That is where my heart, soul, and body is at. I love being in the classroom. That is kind of how I'm able to relate to my students more. I see them and I look them, in the eye, and I use their names. And that for me is what matters, is that they need to be seen, and they feel that they're seen. And I'm so excited to actually share a space with my students again, a different kind of space, not a digital space anymore, but an actual physical space. So I'm really looking forward to actually being with my students in the classroom, but I'm also really excited to teach intro to ethics for my students, and to kind of experiment with some different approaches, different kind of frameworks of how to think about relationships to others, to the global community, to the others that we don't see, others that we do see. So I'm really excited about teaching what I love, which is ethics.
Great. I will say, just a compliment, and for anyone watching out there, I think you did a very, very great job, like way better than I was able to pull off, for sure, with connecting with people in these remote audiences.
Oh, thank you.
The last year, somehow or other, you really made it seem like we were in a classroom.
Yeah.
We
Oh, thank
were all
you.
sitting in front of our screens wherever we happened to be. It's like you somehow like pulled people in, and
Oh,
forgot about the the virtual
Oh,
element.
good. I'm glad. I mean, I love an old school chalkboard. Like, I mean, I love like like the Promethean board and the smart board. Like, I understand why those are really great technology, but for me, I'm such a visual learner, and I also it's in conjunction with actual real time. So like for me, I have to, as both as a student and as a teacher, like I have to write things out, and I want my students to feel like they're being heard when they have ideas. I want to put it on the board and say, I listened to you, and look at how amazing this idea is, and let's connect it. So I feel like I use the whiteboard and the blackboard for that reason, to be engaged, for students to feel like they are being heard and not just kind of watching a slide go by, which sometimes, PowerPoint gets the job done, but if I can get around it, I will.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So on the Jackson Center events and your role in those or in classes, um, any of that worked out yet, or
So I'm not
ideas
going to
about what
be.
you'd like to see yourself contributing?
Mhm. I know that the Ethics Bowl, I won't be able to do it for this upcoming year because I think because of COVID, the new class
Right.
hadn't happened. So I'm looking forward to when that does happen. But yeah, when I initially applied for the position, I was really, really drawn to the mentorship with the Jackson Scholars, and especially the Jackson Scholars mentoring other elementary and secondary ed kids. So I think that that's really what drew me, is that we can work with students not just kind of as facilitators, but also have them become the teachers of a younger generation. So I really liked that relationship that the center is fostering and nurturing. So I'm really looking forward to actually getting involved with that. Doing the ethics bowl. I actually have a friend who is teaching at Clemson, so he knows that I will be looking out for him and his ethics bowl team. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with that. But I'm really just excited to mentor the Jackson Scholars and other students, and to watch them give back to the community, which in turn gives back to themselves. So I'm really excited about that opportunity. I think it's a really unique one that Coastal has, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, great. For those who are interested, the program we're talking about is called the Jackson Scholars Program, and we usually kind of try to recruit or get some interested parties to apply who are they're usually in their sophomore year, but I think as long as you have 2 years to play with in your academic career, you're eligible to apply. And it's a specialized program with its own courses in ethics, and it has some. I don't always like the word extracurriculars, but it's like you do a lot of stuff other than just in the classroom. The Ethics Bowl competition, which is kind of a debate style competition with other classes. That's part of it. They do trips. There's outreach to local schools. There's a leadership component kind of worked into it. So if anybody watching this is interested in that kind of program, then do seek it out when you see the call for it, which I think will be in this. I think it's in the spring. But check the Jackson Center's web pages for information about that. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that fancy little highlight there.
Yeah, man. We have technical support behind the scenes, right?
I love it.
Thank you to Michael DeGiorgio
Yes,
in the Edwards College for helping us out with
yes.
this.
Making the magic happen.
Yeah,
That's when they like click down, subscribe. There's actually something there that you can click
yeah,
down
that's
and
right.
subscribe to.
Making us look good. Let's see. What else? Any questions for me? This feels like
um,
an interview now, but
do you remember taking your first philosophy course?
yes,
And
yes.
did you fall in love with it, or is it just kind of like it was a long courtship in a sense of like it kind of interested you, but you're like, all right, I guess I could give it a try, or was it like an epiphany?
Well, I was interested in taking a philosophy class all along. I was an engineering student for the first long period, actually, of my undergraduate career. But I did want to take philosophy class, and I took intro, and it was not great.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
but it was interesting.
Yeah.
That wasn't the part, but like the delivery wasn't so great, and I will fully confess here on camera that like I was not, my heart was not, or my heart's just like my mind was not in like doing the heavy lifting for it, right? So
Mhm.
I was being one of those students that you wonder what they're thinking out there not doing stuff. Um, but I did like it enough to take another class, and it was the professor for the second class that kind of did it.
Yeah,
Um,
solidified it. Yeah.
yeah. And then it actually was. It wasn't until I was 4 years in that I made the switch. So it was like a
Mm.
fifth year senior doing all philosophy all the time. Is how that went. So yeah, it was. I think in the end, kind of that common experience a lot of us have, where there was sort of one professor, and then of
Mhm.
course the ones who follow up too. Like if they all stunk, then that I'm not doing this, right? But it's like the collective group. We're all not only inspiring, but it's like philosophy's not for everybody, but if you're into those kinds of fundamental questions that you really just want to get some answers to and try to sort out whether those answers are any good, um, that was for me and for you too, and I think for maybe more people than would realize.
Mhm.
That's kind of how it played out. Yeah.
It's that first teacher, that first class that just like connects, and I have to remind myself, like if I'm having an off day, or something, like I have to remember that this might be the class that really hooks them, or they'll remember you, they'll remember how you made them feel, they'll remember the questions that were asked, they'll remember if you supported them or not. So I have to remember that I have to start again new and be excited all the time, even though I'm sure one gets very tired of doing the same courses kind of over the years. But this is brand new to them, so I have to remind myself what it was like to be in that position.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think on my end, I've just changed things up often enough. I
That's
mean,
good.
way back at the beginning of our talk, we were talking about sort of how your interests in philosophy or any field or anything, right, sort of shift through time, and how that's kind of a good thing. There's no way I could teach the same intro class structure,
Hmm.
or emphasis, or even like overall learning goals, because there's so many good and worthy things that you can sort of make more central, or push back a little and make something else a little more central, and it's all good either way. If
Hmm.
you did the same thing every time, it's like I don't think you'd even get it perfected. It would just
Yeah,
get worse. It just
because
get
you just be so burnt out
Yeah,
from it.
yeah, and so like it's much easier to stay enthusiastic if it's authentic,
Hmm.
and the way to do that is to shift things around,
Hmm.
and that's yeah. Yeah, I've always been one who wants to do new stuff. Yeah. A colleague, Ron Green, and we co-taught a Buddhist philosophy class in spring. And like it was great.
Yeah.
You know anything about that? He does, and I provided he knew the Buddhism, and I knew the metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics, and like, okay, let's connect these things together, and here's what kind of arguments might get reconstructed from these very interesting texts that
Hmm.
that I had not really looked closely at before.
And co-teaching too would be just seems like super fun too, because you have it kind of in real time. You have a dialogue happening with the students and in the classroom,
Yeah,
between facilitators, rather than just kind of like this lecture, or this teacher that is the expert. You have like an actual dialogue of like, oh, like, isn't this cool, like when you read this verse, what did you think about it? Like now they look back, I completely missed this part. So they actually see how the dialogue and the unveiling happens in real time, which I think is really cool.
yeah, yeah. That part I liked a lot, and it was especially useful in a kind of hybrid Zoom face-to-face format, because we had a few students who wanted to come to the in-person class, which
Mhm.
actually helped a lot, because then you have like a something kind of like a little seminar going on. But then there's a few. It was a small class, but there were like 5 or 6 people who were on the Zoom end of things. So always having like some conversation able to happen live was good. And the students really impressed us with what they presented on and were able to talk about. But they quite rightly wanted to hang back a little bit and like, let's see what they have to say.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
then
know
we'll take a cue.
what's going on here. Before they would jump in, and that was good. So like and it also helps because I mean, I don't think the Buddhist philosophy is like any more challenging necessarily than any other area of philosophy, but although it had its unique challenges and things, but it was always really good. Like when you came up to, you hit the wall on something in class, or there was some kind of something would come up. There's 2 of you, for whatever the worth of an advanced degree is, that came into play there, where
Mhm.
like 2 of us together could kind of lay out
Mhm.
the
And
situation.
I think it's and yeah, that in time problem solving, I think is really a beautiful interaction to have students watch, and also for those who are part of it to be a part of, is because it's collaborative, right? The idea of like, I try and remind myself that I'm a facilitator, not, a lecturer or just like this teacher. I'm a teacher because I work with my students, and my students work with me to collectively work. And I just kind of happen to know a little bit more about some things, but ultimately we're creating something, we're collaborating. And I like how you can have 2 professors that these undergrads look at like, wow, they're like having a regular conversation like normal people and not like philosophy nerds and teachers. And I think it's really cool to have them see how philosophy is meant to be engaged in. Um, I always try and think about how that looks as what I would be as a student, and then looking in as a facilitator.
Yeah, yeah. I hope they weren't thinking like, "Boy, I didn't know anything about what they were talking about." They sure knew. They sure knew what they were talking about. I had no idea what they were
They look at each other like, "Do you know what they're talking about?" No?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
me either.
They couldn't look at each other either because, they were all in different states and stuff.
Yeah.
That was all great. Yeah, yeah, we hope to do it again, sometime. And the college does look favorably on co-teaching
That's good. That's good
opportunities
to
and
know.
things like that. I don't know if you and Julina, Dr. Oxley, who's gonna be the new director of the Jackson Center, whether y'all are pursuing anything with that or what y'all are gonna do.
I would love to do
Well,
that. I
stuff
think
is
we would have a great time.
center stuff is always great. Whatever y'all do, I'm confident it'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's great. I got to meet her. I was there at the end of June looking for a place to live. And she was so much fun. She's great. So I'm looking forward to working with her, and then you all actually to get to meet everyone in person. So
Yes, and
I'm very
just
excited.
a few weeks away.
I know.
18th is the start. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Um, well, we should probably wrap it up here since the clock in the corner says 33:20. Um, and that's probably a good place too, because we just hit the all right, semester's coming kind of thing. Um, yeah. Any last thoughts before we sign off?
Um, just another reiteration of how excited I am, and who anyone actually watches these things, please come and visit me. I don't actually remember off the top of my head what my office is, but I think I'm in AOC 2.
Yes.
So find me, stop by, leave a message on the whiteboard that hopefully will make an appearance on the door sometime in the semester. I love chatting and having visitors come by. So come and talk about dogs or popcorn or fun TV shows, and Star Wars maybe too. I have my figurines coming soon. So I love visitors.
Cool. All right. Well, I will thank you, and I will thank everyone again who might happen to be watching live or be watching off in the future. Um, and that's it. Take
Yes.
care, everyone, wherever you are.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dennis. Thank you, Michael. And
All
I'll
right.
see you all